Hey, this is Mr. Mitchell. We're going to be talking about tissues and organs. But first of all, write down the questions, and it's going to lead into the skeletal system. Now, you may remember that we have cells, tissues, organs, and systems in living things. And, of course, being living things, we can talk about those four in us. We have an estimated 100 trillion cells in our body. But we only have four different types of tissue. You can see the connective tissue. These connective tissue is like in our bones and in our fat. They provide support. Epithelial tissue is different, however. It is like the skin and linings of organs like our stomach. Muscle tissue is different from the other two. You know that they contract and help us with lifting things and so on. And then the nervous tissue is different from all of them. The nervous tissue carries electrical impulses from the brain. Now, of course, we have bigger, more complex tissues will form organs, heart, lungs, and so on, which then forms systems. I'm going to move this up so you can see the different types of systems we have. We have circulatory system, nervous, respiratory, digestive, skeletal, and muscular. And we're not going to talk much about these right now because we're going to talk about them in upcoming videos. And in fact, that's going to start in this video with the skeletal system. Right there. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the skeletal system. Skeletal system. A newborn baby has, according to our book, about 275 bones. But adults have only 206 bones. The reason is because as the baby grows older, some of the baby's bones actually fuse together. Now, all of these bones are somehow connected to your backbone. Now, the backbone, and here's a small segment of it here, consists of 26 vertebrae. Consists of 26 vertebrae. Now, the vertebrae are connected a little bit like beads on a string. The vertebrae can go up and go down, but it's still connected to the beads on the string. If we had just one bone that was our backbone, we would not have much mobility. But this gives us some mobility, the fact that there are 26 of them connected like they're on a string. Gives us a little more flexibility. Now, you can see here that there are these discs that are in between these vertebrae, and they're on this particular picture telling you about the different kinds of disc. Well, we're not really going to be talking much about disc, but it might be kind of curious to see what a bulging disc is. It means that this is getting a little bit too big, and degenerative disc means that it is withering away and so on, but that would be for another time and another place. Now, you have long bones in your arms and long bones in your legs, and they actually make blood cells. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Bones also store minerals like calcium and phosphorus, and they can release those minerals in small amounts into the blood whenever the body needs it. Let's talk about a joint. A joint is a place where two bones come together. And of course, here is the knee joint. You have the bone, the thigh bone, and you have the bone that is below that, below the knee. And the joint, of course, gives you much more mobility, and it is connected by ligaments. These are, let's see if it says it right here, but these muscles that connect the areas and the joints are called ligaments. Oh, here they are. I knew I had it here somewhere. In fact, you can see at this knee here, you have the ligament right here. You have a little ligament right here. You have ligaments all on the inside, which is kind of protecting from the back. You have ligaments right up in the front here. There's all different kinds of ligaments that kind of serve as a assistance in mobility on this knee joint. So ligaments, I'll underline it right here, and joints are two terms we have here, ligament and joint. Most joints have cartilage covering the ends. Now you can see the word cartilage here. Now look at this bone. You have this bone here and kind of what you might call a layer of cartilage that is covering either bone. And you can imagine what's happening here. If the bones do end up touching, they're not going to have bone deterioration. That's just going to have this softer cartilage. You may remember cartilage is what is inside your nose, that kind of softer tissue. And we'll speak a little bit about cartilage in a moment with another fact. Now, blood vessels actually enter the bone. The bone has these different parts. It has an outer membrane, a hard, compact core, spongy type bone, and bone marrow. Now the bone marrow can be red bone marrow, and that's the kind that produces most of the body's blood cells, or it could be yellow bone marrow, which stores fat. Now when you're a child, most of your bones contain red bone marrow, but by your teenage years, it's just at the end of your femurs, in your skull, hips, and sternum, which is your breastbone. So you can see this picture here. You have the spongy bone, which does kind of tend to be near the ends of the bones. The compact bone is not pointing, this line is not pointing toward the middle right here. This line is pointing toward this little outer edge, I guess you could say, of this bone, this little section right in here, where that's the hard part. Now on the inside here is often where you will find that marrow, and so that kind of shows you a little bit about where they would be located. Speaking of the red marrow, now this must have been taken out of a bone, because it says outer surface of bone is right on the outside here, but you can see kind of the red marrow looks red. That's where the blood cells are made, and you can see right in here you have that yellow tint, which is the yellow marrow, which is a place for where fat can be stored. Bones are very lightweight. They are only about 20% of your body weight, yet they can absorb more force than concrete or granite without breaking. Now the two minerals that are believed to be making them hard are phosphorus and calcium. You may remember that I mentioned them a little bit earlier. Bones make new tissue to replace damaged tissue, so it is just as living as the skin, which does the same type thing. When you were a child, much of your bone material was indeed made of cartilage. Later on, it was replaced with bone. Now, mineral loss in older people can lead to something called osteoporosis, and you can see this term right here that I'm circling. Osteoporosis is when bones become weak and break more easily. And if you take a look at this picture, we have the spongy part inside a normal bone, and it's much more to it than the spongy part inside of a bone that has osteoporosis. And you can just imagine that the osteoporosis bone would not hold up near as well as a normal bone would. It does seem that women get osteoporosis more than men, but studies do show that a calcium-rich diet can help prevent or control osteoporosis. Well, I hope you learned a little bit about your bones.